Good morning. My name is Sally Wantz, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our Florence Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Today we have Catherine Hemmons with us today. She's going to join me later. Jim McDermott is on camera, and Ray Plummery, off to my left, is our sound guy. And behind the scenes is Jay Gutler, who is putting all of this together and providing this video for you today. Thank you, everybody. So the beauty of the recording is that you can stop anytime you want to. Just make sure you come back. Go get a cup of coffee, or maybe print the order of service that was sent with the e-blast, and you can follow along with the readings and the music and the actual order of the service. So as we do each week, we start our service this time with Jeff Lovejoy singing Spirit of Life. It's number 123 in our hymnal. So sing along with him if you'd like. Listening to Jeff. It's beautiful. Thank you. So this week, members will be receiving in the mail 3 documents with a lovely letter from our president, Ray Plummery, asking for your consideration of our budget for fiscal year 21, which starts in July. As well, you'll receive a ballot of potential officers and directors for the board. We want you to consider that. And finally, our community partners for the next year. You can select up to 6 community partners from that list. Return all 3 of those ballots back to us in the self-addressed stamped envelope. That's for members, okay? Our next board meeting will be May 12th, and if you'd like to attend, send an email to florence.unitarian@gmail.com, and we'll send you a Zoom invite. So that's it for announcements, and anybody else have anything to say? Ray, Jim, Catherine?
Ballots have to be back by June 6th.
Ballots have to be back by June 6th. Thank you. So, let's start here with our chalice lighting. At this time, I invite Catherine Hemmons to join me as I get to light our chalice.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here. Today's reading is entitled Exploring Who We Are by Melanie Davis. Under the right circumstances, playing with fire is a delight. Imagine being gathered around a fire pit as the crackling flames invite us to sing, dance, and roast a marshmallow or 2. Our chalice also invites us to play, although with ideas rather than with marshmallows. Something a little more that we can grab onto.
Yeah.
The flames encourage us to explore who we are, who our neighbors are, and where we are on our spiritual journeys. Today, we light this chalice in the spirit of play. Let us trust the light to guide us in this hour and in the days to come, finding joy along the way.
So you'll notice the big joy in front of you. That's from Jennifer's and my kitchen table. I gave that to her as a gift because that's her favorite word, so I share that with you today. We're going to kind of change the order here a little bit. I'd like to provide with you a little information on our offertory. But first I want to share with you some comments that I've received from members and friends. This cute little note says, "We've decided to make an extra gift to Florence Food Share. because we got a check from the government and we decided that it was time to share. This is the value of the U.S. Postal Service, by the way, getting notes in the mail. This one came to us also. Thank you for all your energy and efforts to keep bringing me the message and spirit, and hope that we will soon see an end to the now and return to the new normal. Thank you for giving us all strength and comfort on our path to recovery. Thank you. And finally, another little handwritten note. It's pretty amazing how much I miss all my FOOF folks. Thanks for all you are doing to keep our congregation alive. I am most grateful. Hello to Jennifer as well. So there you go. I love getting these kinds of notes in the mail. With all that said, I now ask your consideration of contributing to our fellowship so we can keep making an impact on the lives of people who rely on us. I also ask your consideration of our newest community partner, the Boys and Girls Club of Western Lane County, but really it's here in Florence. There's a lovely letter from Chuck Trent, who's the executive director. It was in the recent blast. I encourage you to read it because he talks about all the ways the money that we raise and give to them will be used and spent, and it's needed. You know, people look by and they think they're doing pretty good. They don't need any money. Well, they do. They have expenses and they've got food to purchase. They've got a new kitchen they've put in to help provide food and meals to those in need. So it's a good endeavor, and he sends his grateful appreciation of our donations coming in the months of May and June. So when you're done viewing this video, take a moment to add to your offertory jar, you know, the little jar you can keep at home, and when it gets full and we come together again in person, you can bring your jar with you as your contribution to our fellowship. Or you can send us a check to our post office box 2502, and you can donate by using our website. It's pretty easy, and you can make a note on there as to how much money you'd like to go to FOOF and how much money you'd like to go to the Boys and Girls Club, which many of you have done and so appreciated. So, boy, howdy, it's time to enjoy Jeff Lovejoy as he sings to us, "We Would Be One." Just lovely. Thank you, Jeff. At this time, I invite Catherine to come back up, have a little something on our joys and concerns.
Good morning again. In our community, We make time each week to share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because each person in this community has value. Each person's experience matters. We share our sorrows today, knowing that sorrow comes into each person's life, and together we offer comfort. We also share our joys, knowing that too, the joy comes to all in our lives, and knowing that together our voices can rise in a chorus of celebration.
Yes.
We make space each week for joys and concerns, knowing the life and experience of every person matters, and together our ripples in the water send energy outward and inward as needed. I'd like to share one sorrow, one concern that I do know about. Our beloved Jim Negri has gotten the information, gotten the knowledge that his brother has a diagnosis that may be serious, and that his heart is heavy with this knowledge. If you have a joy, sorrow, or concern you'd like to share next week with us, send us an email or give us a call at 541-590-2656. Thank you all.
Catherine, will you drop a shell in the water? This is for Jim and his family. And another shell for everyone else who may have a joy, a sorrow, or a concern that is in your heart, but you've not had a chance to share it with us. Let us know we are with you. So thank you. So before we play a playful musical interlude by Jeff Lovejoy, it's titled Joy, I wish to share with you a fun reading by Lynn Finney in her book Windows to the Light. It's on page 45 for those of you who have the book. Did I do with the book? I lost the book, but I know what the reading is. It goes like this. A butterfly and a hippopotamus play in such different ways. I love that. So I'm going to dim the lights, I'm going to ring this bell, and I invite you to relax, enjoy this beautiful music, or dance if you like. Who cares? If anybody's not watching, dance wild with reckless abandon. Have fun, whichever feels right. Well, you all should have been here while we were taping this, because Catherine's over here doing chair dancing, Jim's in the back kind of going, woo-ha, and Ray is over here dancing away and making a fool of himself. So yay to all of you. So at this time, I am so pleased to introduce our guest at the pulpit, Sarah Skochko. Many of you have seen Sarah before in person here. She's coming to us virtually today, but I also want to tell you, she's going to be an ordained UU minister very, very soon. And we're going to lose her to the state of Texas. We wish her well. We will miss her, but we're glad she's with us today. She's got a wonderful talk. I hope you enjoy it. I think it's filled with a really, really good message for all of us. And it's called something about, in case of emergency, break glass. Please welcome Sarah Skochko.
Good morning, Foof. I'm Sarah Skochko, as most of you probably know, and this is kind of a bittersweet occasion for me. I wish I was there. I wish I was there in person, getting hugs, sharing snacks and laughter. It's hard not to be there. I would say that I miss you more than you know, but you probably do know. But on the other hand, I have to say, it's really a blessing in the year 2020 that we can worship online from home and all stay as safe as possible. And it might not feel like a blessing if you've been on a lot of Zoom meetings on a given day, but to be able to worship together from our separate spaces is really great. And I'm hoping that all of you stay safe and healthy until you can be together again. In Eugene, we canceled worship starting March 15th, I think. And by now, all of us are feeling it. There's a lot of feelings floating around right now. I can tell you the parents in my congregation are struggling really hard with homeschooling and working from home, or still being an essential employee and having to work outside the home but having kids at home. My older congregants, some of them are isolated. They're lonely and scared, and that's pretty normal. Some of my families from church are in really tight quarters, sharing not enough space for too many people. And other people are doing just great, and maybe feeling a little bit guilty for how well they're doing. So I wanted you to know, whatever your situation is, whatever feelings you're going through, they're pretty normal. There's been such a range of reactions to this pandemic. I wanted to show you something before I get too far into the sermon today. The longer you're away from your house of worship, from your spiritual home, the more important it is to carve out some sacred space in your own home. And if you don't have much space, I wanted you to know you can make yourself a tiny little altar on a windowsill, on one of the shelves in your bathroom cabinet. You can make a little altar in an Altoids tin. You can make a sacred space so small. So I wanted to show you the temporary altar I've set up right behind me with a chalice and some flowers, some natural things, some rocks and acorns, some candles, some things of beauty, some things that have spiritual meaning for me. And it's a place where I can go and say a little prayer, do some contemplation, light a candle when I need some extra assistance. And you can do that at your house too. So I encourage everyone, the longer you're away from church, to set yourself up a tiny church at home. And maybe when you watch the service at Foof, you can light a candle on your home altar too. So I've been thinking lately about how we cope, the many different ways we all cope. When the unexpected happens, the unexpected, the tragic, the frightening. And what came to mind was my freshman year of high school back in New Jersey. There was a bomb scare. And this, of course, was before September 11th, 2001. So that kind of event had a very different tenor than it would have today. So it was really more thrilling than frightening. I don't think any of us thought it was real, right? But there was a lot of nervous laughter as we all evacuated out to the front lawn of the high school and the football field. And I don't remember what class I was in, but I remember it all being very exciting and my heart pounding. and it seemed like everyone was just buzzing with this kind of excitement, you know. Within a few minutes, the police, the fire trucks, the bomb squad arrived, sirens blaring, they peeled into the parking lot. It was like an action movie. And I guess it took them a few hours to sweep the school, find out there was no bomb, and let us back in. And I don't think anyone at Overbrook Senior High School in Pine Hill, New Jersey, learned a single thing for the rest of the day. Now, I wish I could tell you more about that day, more details, but the truth is that I don't remember, because a few days later, there was another bomb scare. And so the same thing repeated. Everyone goes out to the lawn, we all go out to the football field, we evacuate the school. The bomb squad comes, police, fire, sirens blaring, they sweep the school. It's a few hours, we go back in. And then a few days later, there was another bomb scare. And then a few days after that, there was another bomb scare. And then another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. And one week in December, someone called in a bomb threat to my high school every single day, Monday through Friday. 5 days in a row. That year, the New York Times called Overbrook High School, and I quote, the bomb threat capital of New Jersey. By the end of the year, if I'm remembering correctly, we wound up having 41 bomb scares, which was so many the school board considered extending the school year to make up for all the class time we had missed. Sometimes they would call the scare in not to the high school office, but to the school board office. And because there were 4 high schools and junior high schools in my district, if the caller didn't specify which school, the bomb squad would have to go to all of them. And if we were the last school, if they went to Edgewood Junior or Senior first, we could be out on that football field all day before we got cleared to go back in. And I remember on one particularly cold day, the principal let us back into the gym. We couldn't go back to our classrooms, but back into the gym. And the explanation I heard from a teacher, and this is a quote, was, if it was a bomb, it would have gone off by now. And she wasn't wrong, I guess. I don't know how much time I had been planning to spend on the football field that year. It was probably not much. It wound up being a lot. But I remember in the middle of the year, on days when I hadn't done my homework, which when I was in high school was a lot of them, or days when I hadn't studied for a test, hadn't remembered there was a test, I remember getting to school and praying that we would have a bomb scare that day, that I could get out of it. In the winter time, however, it was a different story. So the principal would let us stop at our locker to get our coats on before we went outside. And many of us started keeping snacks and books or comic books, blankets, extra batteries for our Walkman. Do you remember Walkman? Because we would play cassette tapes and have our headphones. Games to play, and eventually extra blankets for our friends. And I remember vividly several days when, being a teenager, I had not brought a sweatshirt or dressed appropriately for the weather. Or I hadn't eaten breakfast or packed any snacks, and my Walkman was dead. And I remember standing outside, freezing and hungry and absolutely miserable. One day I put my arms into my book bag to try to keep warm. It didn't work. And I remember just praying, and I was not a believer, just praying to be able to go back inside. While other kids laughed and joked with their friends, the kids who were bundled up and had Doritos. I remember watching them joking around as if everything was fine. Because of course for them, it was, right? They had everything they needed. And I didn't know what meditation was at that time, but I am pretty sure I invented it on the spot to try to distract myself. Like I was out on that football field counting blades of grass to try to not focus on how cold it was. But then there were other days when I was bundled up. When I did bring some Doritos to school, or I'd been in a class with friends so that we all got to evacuate together, and I wasn't alone. And being outside was awesome. It was preferable to being inside. And on those days, I prayed that it would just last a little bit longer. So all of us were contending with the same event. All of us faced the same shared experience, but on any given day, our circumstances, including our mindset, were radically different, right? There were 1,800 kids in this high school. All of us were having a different day. And all the resulting experiences were true and valid. But what determined how that day went was what you had in your locker. And I think in some ways that's exactly what we're going through right now. With regard to our material circumstances, for one thing, some of us came into this pandemic with plenty of Doritos and batteries for our Walkmen, so to speak. And some of us never had a sweatshirt to our name. Now we're all out on the football field, and I don't care who you are, looking around and seeing at the different circumstances that people are in is going to lead to some cognitive dissonance, to some guilt or some anger. Absolutely. Now, some of us are doing comparatively well and feeling a little bit bad about it, knowing that others aren't. We're feeling a lot bad about it. Whereas some of us can barely sleep at night from the anxiety, the stress, the worry of how we're going to make it. Some of us are contending with grief and baffled by all these Facebook posts, if you're on Facebook, about making sourdough bread. And some of us are making sourdough bread. I'll say of all my friends who are nurturing a sourdough starter right now, I'm pretty sure none of them have small children. And all my friends with small children are at the end of their rope at this point. Some of us, before the pandemic, were feeling really overwhelmed. No one should be surprised by the fact that the pace of modern life had gotten unsustainable for most of us. It was just too much. The cult of busyness was yielding increasingly small rewards. So many of us were effectively dreading the homework that we hadn't had time to complete, or the high-stakes test that we never seemed to have time to study for and had forgotten we were even having in fifth period that day. And now we have a blessed reprieve of a really timely bomb scare for some of us. Whereas some of us are isolated all the way across the football field from people we feel comfortable being around. Or we're stuck with a group of bullies. Or we're with our beloveds. And all those situations are very different. Now, I've seen Twitter and Facebook posts, bear with me. I've seen these social media posts saying that if you come out of this pandemic and you haven't learned a new skill, like to play guitar or to knit, then you never really wanted to learn at all. That is hogwash. And blessedly, I've seen some mental health professionals post instead to push back and remind us that no matter how well you're doing, all of us are living through a mass collective trauma, and you absolutely do not need to use this time for self-improvement. Your job right now is to make it through the day. And I can say, from my experience at my church, a lot of people who've lost their income, or they're retired and their investment income is suffering, are really worried about whether or not they can contribute to their church. And I say to you that the greatest gift you can give your church is your survival. That when all of this is said and done and we come back together, that you're there and that you're safe and well. Well, with regard to us taking up new hobbies during this time, I've noticed that many of the new hobbies I see people taking up, like knitting and baking and gardening, which are all super cool, many of them are tied to survival. These are survival skills. I think there's something spiritually fulfilling in being able to provide for ourselves and those we love, especially materially, bodily. I think it's so fulfilling spiritually that people are attending, perhaps without knowing it, to their religious lives, even if we don't call it that. I think that the stuff that we have in our locker, so to speak, at any given time, is not just the material stuff, although obviously that has a huge impact on how any of us are doing. But I think that we each also have a spiritual locker, so to speak. or a spiritual toolbox, I've heard it called, where we store up the skills, the understandings, the wisdom that we need to make it through the day, especially in times like this. So you've seen those fixtures in buildings that say, in case of emergency, break glass. I think each one of us has something like that inside of us. And we don't know until push comes to shove what is on the other side of that glass. It's not a fire extinguisher. In this case, it's resilience. Or it's our capacity to forgive ourselves. It's our capacity to calm ourselves. Or it's our capacity to get mad and get motivated. We won't always know what it is that we'll need until that emergency comes. And even if we don't pray or meditate ourselves, it might be our capacity to count the blades of grass on the football field. It's our capacity to slow down and focus on the task in front of us. It's that old Zen Buddhist story, to eat your rice and wash your bowl. Eat your rice, wash your bowl. It could be our love for the springtime and our ability to be grateful for the new blossoming flowers and Oregon sunshine, so that every day has some beauty in it, even as we grieve and struggle. It's capacities that we did not know we had, or didn't realize were important. You know, on our worst day, when we are not proud of how we've handled things, when we might not be feeling good about ourselves, what's left in our spiritual toolbox might just be the understanding that we're only human and doing the best we can. It might be the capacity to get up tomorrow, the incredible power to get back up. Or, when we can't get out of bed, it might be the capacity to rest, to take care of ourselves, to slow down. It's the capacity to appreciate what we have, the practice of gratitude. It's the capacity to step forward, to stand up and say, this isn't good enough for me. We have to do better. It's the capacity to fight. It's the capacity to take a deep breath and forgive our loved ones when they interrupt our Zoom call. It's the capacity to reach out to friends when we are feeling so isolated we could suffocate, because we know we need one another. As Unitarian Universalists, we find inspiration in so many places. And as members of a faith community, and you all have a strong and loving community, we may all have been stashing things away in our locker, in our spiritual toolbox, without realizing it, while we were being nurtured by our community. And what makes today, or tomorrow, or the next day a good day might be something that we never expected to need and did not know we had. I'm saying spiritually, there might be more inside of you than you know. And while there's no amount of enlightenment that can pay your rent when it's overdue, and no amount of enlightenment that can teach your fourth grader math if you're now suddenly homeschooling, there's no amount of enlightenment that can go to the grocery store for you if you're worried about your health and scared of being exposed. I'm saying even in crisis, despite those things, you can still have a rich spiritual life. Your spiritual life does not need to be on pause just because a crisis is going on at the same time. When I visited India 10 years ago, I saw the most abject poverty I had ever encountered, along with shrines and temples adorned with marigolds and incense on what seemed like every street corner, and people barefoot, impoverished, starving, and yet still at prayer, still incorporating their spirituality into their everyday lives. Because attending to the spirit is not optional. It's in our nature. It's what we do. We are meaning-making creatures. And the time now might not be to restock our spiritual toolbox or locker or glass case. It might not be to take up new hobbies and learn things. The time now might be to break the glass, and pull out everything that we didn't know we were saving and never knew that we would need. Amen. Blessed be.
Wasn't that a delightful message? She is just so darned adorable. And I love that she's given us permission, me permission, to just be. Don't feel guilty about not having to do all of those things that somebody else says you have to do. Just be. And in case of an emergency, break class. So at this time I invite Catherine to come back up as we extinguish our chalice.
Hello again, everyone. This reading is titled A Blessing of Darkness and Light by Amy Morgenstern. Blessed is the dark in which our dreams stir and are revealed. Blessed is the dark of earth where seeds come to life. Blessed are the depths of the ocean where no light shimmers the womb of all earthly life. Blessed is the light unto which we awake, the light that sparkles on the waters, that calls the tree forth from the seed and calls the shadow forth from the tree. Blessed are we, especially, as we move through darkness and through light. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you, Catherine. So as we move towards our closing, we've got Jeff again going to be singing our peace song. But, Catherine's here, I'm here, Ray, well, let's not have him sing. How about whoever feels like singing along here at the podium can join me. But let's have Jeff sing our peace song, shall we?
That was meant to be, with love as our center, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
In closing, I offer the following, titled, May the Prayers of Our Heart, by Phyllis O'Connell. May the prayers of our hearts and the songs of our lips shared in this holy hour of worship be with us now in all the days to come. Amen. Unless anybody else in this room has something to share, I wish you all a wonderful week and look forward to seeing you next Sunday morning. And don't forget the Zoom at noon. Zoom at noon. Take care.